You need to root yourself in silence, because if God calls you on a mission to bring his love to this world somewhere, and you are so attached to your home, your money, your bank account, your security, your supermarket, your knowing where your bills are going to be paid from, your knowing where your food is going to come from, knowing what meals you're going to eat on what day. If you're so locked into that security, then where's the space for God as your security? Where's the space for God as connected through silence, as the language of God is silence? Where is that? Where's the space for you to learn it, to know it again?
You are infinite and more than life itself. You are everywhere, forevermore, beyond life and death.
Hey, beautiful family. I'm in Germany again, so you'll be getting a slightly different background and so on for the next few weeks. Literally my first day back, travelled all night, and we flew here because of a dream, actually, and this sounds a bit obscure for many persons, but so many of the directions in my life have gone well off the back of dreams that we do know when something is up, and so I'll not go into it too much, but trust in your dreams. For those of you who don't know, last year I correctly predicted that a family member had cancer because I dreamed that a past relative told me they did, and I knew before they did that they had cancer, in fact. So hear your dreams and know that in the depths of that subconscious, when you're dreaming in the delta and the theta waves, this is where God can speak to you. But I want to make this video while I'm fresh on this, because travelling overnight, I was awake while the children and Fritzy were asleep a lot of the time, and I had a lot of time to meditate and go over something I've been working on for the last month. And today was kind of like a culmination of that, because I've had an opportunity to test it. You know, what I came to realise was that when I was living out in Tanzania at first, I had a superpower. That's how I felt. And that superpower sort of went missing, and I lost it, and I couldn't find it. And the problem was I wasn't actually quite sure what the superpower was. And actually what the superpower was, that I had attached myself to a friend of all of ours, and that friend's name is silence. Now, silence can give birth to beautiful creation in this world, and my silence gave birth to creation, and beautiful creation. But what happened was I became attached to that which was born from the silence that is the friend within me. And it is my friend that I take everywhere. It's our friend we can take everywhere. And it changes our whole world and life perspective when we make friends with it. But because of the manifestations that came out of my silence, I grew attached to it. And this became a problem because my emotional stability, my grounding, my mental stability, even an identity, without the world I built around me, I'm in a profound position. A whole village that I built, a whole vision that I had manifest. And so being inside there felt beyond home, because I created it all, and it's how I wanted it to be. And it was whilst there, holding my ego, my sense of self in a good stern foundation. But when I got ill and I couldn't be there, it started to make me crazy, because the very foundations, the struts that were holding me in place as a man were not there. And as I got more ill and I couldn't even go and visit the children, etc., even when I was in Tanzania, my identity started to fade within me as well, and I felt disempowered, I felt weak, I felt unstable. And I realized that something's gone horribly wrong here because of that, because I never had that stability when I arrived in Tanzania from the external environment, and yet I felt strong and stable and present and confident. And I was losing it, and I was trying to establish what had gone on. So what did go on is that I became attached to the creation that was born out of my silence, instead of being attached to my silence. So I have spent the last months literally reattaching myself to silence, but it's not that simple, because I have to go through your mind is a lake, and this is the conscious and habitual patterns of the mind, the surface waves on the lake. And I created new subconscious patterns of identity and security off the back of the external world around me. And so I had to make friends with silence. I had to make the waves big, dip down and pull out these habits. And pulling out those habits pulled out many wounds and things that needed healing. But the more I pulled in there, the more I became reacquainted with silence. Because the heart, the mind, it's all interconnected. The heart is a chamber. And inside that chamber, when you keep it empty, there's resonance. And when you have that resonance, when you meet spirit, spirit goes in and it echoes and rattles around inside what you can imagine an echoing hollow heart within you. And when you have the empty heart is when you can make it full, because the resonance of the consciousness bouncing around inside, it just keeps building and building. But when you fill up that hollow heart with lack of forgiveness and sin and habits that should not be present, attachment to worldly needs, etc., as the consciousness and spirit goes in, it bounces around, but it doesn't get the full freedom to move and keep vibrating and resonating within there, and so it gets muffled, and the coherence is not as powerful and loud as what it could be. And so having an empty heart is to have a full heart in that sense. But dipping in and pulling out these patterns that I'd had and attachments. Now, I'm not saying detachment and attachment are a different journey, because they're not. They're the same journey. To become wholeheartedly attached to Feather's Tail and the children was just as important for me as becoming unattached. But whilst I'm not well and I'm moving around, and I need to travel, and I need to move to Germany, I need to be here, I'm building another Feather's Tail in another area of Tanzania. How can I allow an environment to make me strong? And it's okay when I'm there for it to make me strong, but when I'm not there, if it makes me weak, which is what many of us find ourselves in that position, something must be done. And so I reacquainted myself with silence. And the irony of this is that I built all I built from silence, because as Rumi said, silence is the language of God and all else is poor interpretation. Jesus said, seek first the kingdom and all else will be added unto you. Jesus also said the kingdom is within you. He also said the temple is you. And Solomon's temple, as I recently said, is a temple built in silence. Silence is the language of God, as Rumi said, all else is poor interpretation. Seek first the kingdom, which is seeking within inside your temple, which is a temple built in silence. Ultimately, the silence I'm speaking of that is my friend is God. And it's not that silence is God, it's that that's the only place where you can actually be rooted with God. It's where you can hold on and be present in ceaseless prayer. And if anything interferes with that, if I go to Feather's Tail and it becomes my stability, it becomes my emotional comfort, it becomes my safety blanket, it becomes my environment. Now you can reflect that and say, how does that reflect on you? Your home, your money, your bank account, when all of those things become your security and God is not your security. When all of those things happen, you need to root yourself in silence, because if God calls you on a mission to bring his love to this world somewhere, and you are so attached to your home, your money, your bank account, your security, your supermarket, You're knowing where your bills are going to be paid from. You're knowing where your food is going to come from, knowing what meals you're going to eat on what day. If you're so locked into that security, then where's the space for God as your security? Where's the space for God as connected through silence, as the language of God is silence? Where is that? Where's the space for you to learn it, to know it again? And this is what I have had to reintroduce to my life. And I'm traveling with my family, and of course there's a sense of home with my family. Home is a place you take with you in your heart. But what I have come to realize as well is that on this journey away from Tanzania, my sense of self is stronger again, because I've rooted myself in silence, and in doing that I've rooted myself back in God. And so my dependence is not on the things that I know. It's not on the manifestation and creation that came off the back of my attachment to silence and thus my connection to God. But rather now I find my fulfillment back in that silence again. And yes, I might miss the place. Yes, I'll miss the children. It's been a while since I saw them. Even though I was in Tanzania, I was unable to go. There's various reasons that I'll touch in a video about this. When I was there, the feeling was starting to change. That I don't need this environment I built to make me John. Because when I arrived, I didn't need it. And I was strong. But as time went on, the more I used my energy to depend upon the community I built, instead of using my energy to depend upon God to keep growing that community, the weaker I became as a man. Because the more security I had from the world around me, the less security I felt, or the less need I felt to seek the security and the closeness with God. And I want to share that, because it's a journey most of us are facing. It's a journey most who wish to be sovereign in God and call on God to give them purpose. It's a journey many will have to take, and it's quite a scary one, to let go of understanding where food, bills, etc. will come from. To take these leaps of faith, to go into the world after having lived for years in a society where you're working to get a salary, to pay this, to know what's coming on each given week. To walk out into somewhere in the world where you don't know what's coming and say, I am 100% on here, the trust of God that you will make this right, whatever it is that's ahead, because I'm going to start seeing what I believe and not believing what I see. But you can't do that. You cannot do that unless you become very good friends with silence. Because when you become good friends with silence, you become good friends with the very language by which God reaches mankind. And that's what I wanted to share. That I'm so grateful to be here for the lesson and the pinnacle of knowing that I've done well with the work I've been doing, and getting rid of these beautiful attachments that made me weak, because they made me separate from the most important attachment I had, the most important power I had in my life. My friend, silence. God bless, guys.